Morning.
Good morning. I love this song. This is Peter Gabriel.
Indeed.
So I'm drinking some coffee here. What do you got? What do you got going on?
This is an energy seltzer called Lodestone. Or True North. True North, which I think is... It's like they made it for us.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't even hear you with the music so loud.
Yes.
Yeah, this is pretty fun.
True North. Love it. So,
What are you going to talk about today?
so we got this. I want to hear this little chorusy part coming up here, because that's gonna tie us together.
There you go.
All right, there it is. So, there's a book I just finished reading, and we're gonna talk about that book by Brian Tracy. We're gonna talk about some other books as well.
Yep.
But Lodestone True North podcast episode 019.
Yeah. We're almost
I
going
love
to
it.
hit the second decade pretty
I
soon
love
here.
it.
Yeah.
Hey, turn my headphones up a little bit, just a notch. There you go. Perfect.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, episode 019, I've finished up a bunch of books. We're still reading the Team of Rivals by Doris, Kerns, Goodwin. At least you are. I'm done.
Thanks.
I finished it.
I'm literally at the halfway mark.
Yeah.
Well, actually past the halfway mark, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So, so I'm done with it. I love it. Of course, I won't give away. We all know what happens.
No spoilers.
But since I've been waiting for Brandon to finish and for you to finish,
Right.
and I've had a lot of windshield time, as well as a lot of headphone time, because I've been working on various projects at the house, outside, on the weekends and evenings. I've pounded a bunch of other books.
Yeah, it's good.
Since
Yeah.
finishing that Behemoth. Is that the right word?
Oh,
Behemoth. That's
yes.
a big thing, big beast.
It's hefty.
So, anyway, I have a couple of books, 4 books I finished since then. 4. Let that sink in. So, anyway, my ears hurt. But one of them is this book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. We're going to talk about that in a minute here. And I've got a tool that I pulled out of there. And he is a no-nonsense, here's how you got to do some stuff. Really, really simple, really well-spoken, really, what's the word I'm going to use? Brief. He just kind of gets right to it. Like, here it is. Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
So I read that. Also, I read a wonderful book, just wonderful, called All the Light We Cannot See. And it is it's a historical fiction. I'm not sure how much of it's fiction, although it's set in World War II. The context is this young kid who's an orphan, who's growing up in an orphanage, who's a German kid, late 30s into the 40s, and then this little girl whose dad is a master kind of locksmith at this famous museum of natural history, I think, in Paris, I believe. And it's just glorious the way that it's written. The story hops all around, and it's all about invisible light. It's really kind of the motif that winds through the whole book. And so there's this diamond that's full of this invisible light, and then there's these radio waves. Both of them have this radio thing going on. It's really, really interesting. And the little girl is blind.
Oh wow.
And so you're kind of seeing from her perspective, like her filling in what she's feeling and thinking. And it's all set in this crazy upheaval going on in France, from Germany coming in World War II. And it's a beautiful book, really, really well written. It won a Pulitzer Prize too. So I just devoured that. It was, I couldn't stop listening.
That's really cool.
You know, it was really beautifully written.
Yeah.
And the story was really touching. A lot of good human stuff there. A lot of heavy duty stuff, as well. It's a wonderful parenting story as well. There's this whole kind of context or motive or motif of parenting's a big deal. It's a really big deal, and you see that really beautifully portrayed, and you see the results of lack of parenting, and you see the results of good parenting, and you see when how we all have these different broken spots because of different types of parenting, and really, really well written. So I can't say enough good stuff about it. Also, I listened to on audio. I had a number of trips I did on the road for client work, 3 or 4 different road trips of 4-hour drives, and so I pounded out some of these books on those. But the third one I finished was Dune Messiah. I had never read the second Dune book. Now
I did in junior high.
Yeah,
so it was a long time ago.
I love the first one.
It's a great book.
I really, really love it.
Yeah.
It's probably, it might be on my top 5 desert island books. If I get stranded on a desert island, I'd probably be like, yeah, I think I'd take Dune. Not
Dune Messiah. No, I was just going to say probably not.
I don't know how to say this nicely. I didn't like it. I wasn't. It was like, it just seemed like, what's his name? Frank?
Herbert.
Is that his name? Yeah, I wrote it down. Frank Herbert.
Yeah.
I can never remember his name.
Yeah.
It was almost like, he wrote it in 1969, I think, and it was almost like Dune was such a big deal. He's like, well, let's see if anybody will buy this book. I mean, it just seems like he wasn't trying that hard.
I think publishers do that too. Like
Yeah.
if you have a hit,
Yeah.
you need to
Well,
make
it's kind of
another
like
hit.
movies. It's like
Right.
the second movie's
Yeah.
always dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So-
rare when, whatever 2 comes out.
Now the movie of Dune,
Yeah,
part
the movie's
1
great.
is
Well,
phenomenal.
so we're in 2022. It's just the movie
right.
that came out over the winter.
Yeah,
was
not
really,
the one with Sting.
No,
No, that's not good.
really dumb.
Yeah. Although I keep watching that one too.
Yeah.
When it comes up. Like, yeah, I'll watch that again.
Well, the music in the Dune movie was ridiculously good. I love any kind of movie music that has orchestral or classical choir in it, classical voice. So well done. A great example of really good movie music is Gladiator. Just crazy good. There's some great vocal stuff in there. Lord of the Rings has some great vocal stuff in it. So, anyway, the Dune music is ridiculously good. But Dune Messiah, I was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Not so good. I got all the way through it.
I was just going to ask you, did you stop? Or
I almost stopped.
Yeah.
And I was like, I might as well finish it. And it just, it was dumb. Sorry to say.
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's because I had because Dune was so good, and maybe he just had way too much to live up to. Maybe if Dune hadn't been there, maybe Dune Messiah would have been okay. I don't know. So, and then the last one that I just finished about a week ago or so was Steve Jobs. Now, I've had a lot of coaching buddies, coaching compadres, brethren, sistren.
I was just going to say sistren.
I don't know. What do you say? How do you say
I
that?
don't know.
I just avoided saying something really dumb.
Good job. I'm really proud of you.
So
nice.
So a lot of my coaching buddies have read Steve Jobs and talked about the book.
Is that the actual name of the book? It's just Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, by Walter Isaacson.
Okay.
And sipping my coffee here. I got some great coffee this morning. So it was really well written. And knowing, having kind of lived through this whole era of when, I remember when in the 80s, when Apples came out, right? 84, 85. I remember So at our school, we had a computer lab with Apple II.
If you were lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Apple II, you were lucky.
Yeah.
And I remember when the Macintosh came out, and it was just, a little earth-shattering in the computer world. Anyway, so it was interesting having some context historically from, like, living through a little bit of it, and then iPod and so forth. And it's a great read for anybody who is leading people. It is it's like a case study, if you will. It's like a white paper on some good stuff and some not so good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, and all the people that he led said this. He was a jerk. I mean, he was uncool in many, many ways. And he was also brilliant in a few ways, which I think is how it goes historically. This idea of, and I can't remember where I read this. I think it might have been, maybe it was in Tom Peters or something. The idea of a well-rounded leader is a farce. There is no such thing. Like, you don't have leaders that are balanced and good at all the basics. They're really good at one or two things, and that's it. And everything else, they're either so-so at some stuff and really bad at all the rest of it. And you just see that in any kind of, like, you see that in politics, you see it in business leadership, military leadership, where and shoot, we're reading, the Lincoln book. Lincoln was like that. Lincoln really stunk at some stuff.
Yeah.
Now, he happened to be one of the good guys. I mean, Lincoln was truly a good man. Like, he had a lot of character. He was not, his ambition, if you could even call it that, was wholesome. Now, the other guys, some of the other guys, especially Chase, their ambition was selfish or self-centered or arrogant or
Chase and
egocentric.
Yeah,
and
both of those guys.
Seward kind of shifted as he went along. He became much more just a fun, happy, fun-loving, easygoing, and he ended up becoming Lincoln's, like, best friend and biggest fan.
I think he was watching Lincoln and how he was behaving and interacting with everybody. I think that made a
And Chase never got over it. He never got over the fact that he was not great and famous and rich, and he was, and Chase was an outspoken, quote unquote, character Christian guy, yet he was the ickiest.
Which is disappointing.
Yeah, like, it seems like that's the case when folks got this billboard out and they're like, "Hey, look at me!" It's like, okay,
yeah,
all right, something's going on.
Didn't Seward, like, just when he lost the election or the nomination to be the Republican nominee, he lost, and didn't he just, like, cry?
Yeah, he was
like, "It's over. I'm never going to have this chance." And so he just kind of, at that point, he knew that was never going to be, and he kind of moved on. Yeah,
he moved on.
Yeah.
And his guy, his mentor, what's his name? Thurlow Weed. We've talked about him.
Good old Thurlow.
Mr.
Weed.
Yeah, can you imagine having a little baby and sitting around with the missus and being like, well, what do you say we name him Thurlow? I think Thurlow's available.
Where does that name?
I don't know.
It's
like somebody should throw it out. I mean, it's not, it's a bad idea. Thurlow.
Must be a family name.
Hey, whatever. So Steve Jobs, the book Steve Jobs, is a great read because you're seeing. He said to the author, what's his name, Walter Isaacson, and Walter Isaacson is, I don't know if he's still alive. I assume he is. The book was written in 2012 or so, right after right around the time when Steve Jobs died, because Walter Isaacson goes and has like 40 or some interviews with him, and he goes and sees him just not long before he died. And the book came out. I'm drawing a blank here now, but I think the book actually came out after he died. Now he had I think he could have read the manuscript. The manuscript was done, but there's some other parts that weren't done. And he had told Walter that he wasn't going to read it. Like, he didn't want to color Walter's work, which was really interesting. And he went to Walter. He got sick the first time. I think it was 2004. Steve Jobs did with I think it was pancreatic cancer. I think that's what it was.
I don't remember. And
dude, he was wacky about diet. Like, he was a hardcore. Now, I guess so. Here I'm saying, if you're a hardcore vegan, I'm like, I think it's wacky. All right. Now, other people think it's not. Fine, whatever. Love you. But anyway, he would go on these roller coaster diets where he would fast, and then he was super picky about what he ate, and he was super bombastic about his opinion about it, about everything. So folks would bring these plates out to the table, and he would yell. He's like, "This is expletive." I don't know. I don't want to say it.
Poop.
Yeah. Caca.
Yeah.
But he's just like, "This is," and he just like
bleep.
And then he'd taste another plate.
This is bleep
too, and just like was really obnoxious about it.
Yeah. And
then he'd get to this other thing, this other plate, and like, "Oh, this is the best." He was binary. Like, it was either black or white. It was either awful or wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have any in between with anything. So for instance, he had his first episode at Apple, they started the company, they built some product
out of their garage,
right? And he got out of it. They basically fired him,
right?
Essentially, and he ended up with, I don't know, a couple $100 million somehow, and he went from broke, like really broke, and he'd go around in his bare feet and sandals, and he wouldn't bathe. Like, they had to force him. The Apple company would go like, "Steve, go take a shower, you reek." Like, they couldn't he would not use deodorant. He would not take shower. He was like, no, because I have such a healthy diet, I don't stink. Like, no, you do. Like, you do bad, And he's like, no, I don't. And he was bombastic like that.
That's so weird.
And he's just like this total hippie in that sense. And then, so he had this pile of money, and he bought this huge mansion in, it was like Palo Alto. Cupertino, I think is the name of the town. There's a couple little towns right around in that whole Silicon Valley. And he was buddies, by the way, with Hewlett and Packard. And they had built this little shop in their backyard. And he would go and talk to those guys and get ideas from them when he was a kid. And also, one of his first jobs was he worked for Atari.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. Atari had 50 employees, or 40 or 50, and one of them, it was Steve Jobs, the 17-year-old or something. I don't know. He was a 18, 17, 19, I don't know, something like that. And he, I think, helped build. They had console video games, like at bowling alleys and stuff.
Right.
Space Invaders, I think, was Atari. I think. Centipede.
Space Invaders, Asteroids.
Was Asteroids? Yeah.
I think.
Okay. And then they came out with the home console thing. But anyway, somehow Steve Jobs was like a worker bee in that early phase. That was really interesting. I didn't know that. So, but anyway, he bought this mansion because he had his ton of money, but he still acted like and lived like he was broke. He just kind of was this real hippie guy. Bunch of whole hippie kind of story in his youth, a bunch of it. Very interesting to read about that. But he had this mansion. He wouldn't lock his doors. He had zero, so he's well on his way to being a billionaire at this point. Had no furniture. He literally had a mattress on the floor. He didn't have any couches. He had a couple of weird little chairs. He had a coffee maker. He had a few of his pictures of some of his heroes. Einstein was a hero. Gandhi was a hero. Who else was it? Oh, Bob Dylan, a huge.
Right.
Bob Dylan was his absolute all-time favorite artist. Beatles second. And there's with iTunes.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. Yeah.
There's this whole thing around Dylan and Beatles and iTunes and rock and roll and the Rolling Stones, and like he went around and talked to these folks to talk them into putting their stuff on iTunes.
Right.
When iTunes first came out, like in 2003 or whatever it was. So anyway, just really fascinating how unadulterated, like how he thought and worked and acted. Anyway, absolute must read for anybody who's leading anything and who's kind of innovating. You're going to get so much cheap epiphany from this book because you're going to go, oh, I should do more of that as a leader. Or you're going to go, oh, I am that stupid as a leader.
And I need to stop.
Yeah. You can learn so much from his mistakes and from his successes. And one of the things he was really good at, so he went back into Apple he got fired, but I think he still owned his shares. I think he just got fired from the board, fired from CEO, fired from all that stuff. But if I remember right, and then he went into Pixar, because Pixar at that time was a computer. It was basically the technical side of animation, and they did a bunch of work for Disney and for some others. Skywalker, the
THX.
Well, whatever the studio, the visual studio for Lucasfilms.
I think it's
Skywalker Sound is their soundstage,
right?
Is their studio. So anyway, the visual part, and Pixar was a computer company that had a bunch of Apple stuff, Macintosh stuff, and they made a bunch of hardware and software that was not consumer, that was for these this new technological creativity, and Steve Jobs was very creative. He really loved artistry, and he was all about like perfection and artistry and so forth, mastery of that sort of thing. And so he just was like, all right, well, they had this client called Pixar they had built a bunch of gear for, and so he kind of took over that part of Apple's offering. They just kind of like shuffled him off into the corner. They're like, here, go deal with those creative people that use this gear. And so he ended up becoming the CEO of Pixar. Although they weren't making movies, what they were doing is they were helping other people make movies. And one of their engineers, and I don't get the story probably pretty wrong, but one of their engineer guys had a side hobby, like they would make these little shorts, little short films, just because it was fun, and they wanted to show off what their gear could do, but they weren't movie makers, and their shorts, like one started winning all these awards. Remember the one where the bird's on the wire and the bird and the big doofy bird landed on it, remember? And then the lamp thing, those were some of their just like little.
It's kind of experimental.
They were experimental. They were just goofing around. One of the guys that ran this gear. And so somehow they they talked to Disney, and Disney was, and that guy loved toys. This guy had made a short about some little toy. I don't remember what it's called. It's like a space toy or something. It wasn't Buzz Lightyear or Andy, but because he was so into the nostalgic toys, that's where this Toy Story came along, sort of. It kind of like spurred that. And Disney was like, yeah, we need to make another movie, but we're kind of they were a little lost. And somehow.
They were floundering at that point, for sure.
Steve Jobs basically like orchestrated the whole thing. And he's kind of a rainmaker guy. Like he would blow into places and make things happen, and stir it up. So anyway, Toy Story came out, and he made a ton of money, became a billionaire basically by turning this little side hustle for Apple, anyway, Pixar thing, into this. And they ended up doing like 10 blockbuster films, basically rescued Disney. At least the author makes that point.
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs became the biggest shareholder of Disney stock. He owned like 8 or 9% or something. He loved Walt Disney. He was fascinated by Walt Disney's vision. He thought, the way he got kicked out of Disney and brought back in was very similar to how Steve Jobs with Apple.
Right.
Very similar. So all that stuff, as a person who's working with leaders and helping businesses and all that stuff, there is so much in this story that is fertile ground for finding epiphanies. It was crazy. I kind of came away from there with a little bit of a love-hate.
Right.
I didn't realize what a doofus he was. He was not a good dad. He was, and he said so. There's a number of storylines here where he's just like totally mails it in as a dad in 2 different situations. He has a kid with a girlfriend, and he ignores the girlfriend and ignores the kid for like 10 years.
Wow.
And doesn't give him any money, hardly doesn't, just completely mails it in. And he's nearly a billionaire. And he just ignored him. It arguably was criminal. Also, speaking of criminal, he refused. He was a kind of a, I'm going to use the word libertarian. He was kind of, I would say he was a libertarian, conceptually or like philosophically. He couldn't stand Obama. When Obama got elected, he thought Obama was doing it wrong, and he was disgusted with his leadership style. He thought he was wasting this and screwed up that and couldn't. And his wife put together this whole Steve Jobs' wife put together this thing where the president was going to come and hang out with Steve, and she like worked all this out.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not doing it. Like, he refused. He's like, I don't want to meet with that guy. Now, who refuses to meet with the president?
It doesn't
in
matter
their living
who,
room?
Right. It doesn't matter who it is.
The president's coming over to our house.
Right.
So
you still meet with the president because
and
that's
like,
just
he's like,
too
no.
much.
And they had this huge fight for like a week.
Wow.
Where he's like, what'd you do that for? I don't want to meet with the president. And finally he capitulated, and he met with the president, and he's just like, basically, and the guy in the book, he writes it how it all came down, and he's like, basically, Steve Jobs like, you're really screwing up. You're doing this wrong. You need to do it this way. I could help you figure out this and that, but you'll never learn. And he just dished it out. Like, he was completely unflinching with his opinion. And it's just...
That's kind of cringy, isn't it?
It is cringy, but it was really effective. I mean, I don't know what to make of it, but it's really worth reading. I got to tell you. So anyway, I came away from that I a really wide range of experiences reading this book. Some of it was like I got this terrible taste in my mouth, and some of it was like, man, this guy's brilliant, and some of it was like, man, I want to beat the crap out of this guy, and I'm like, I should call the cops on. Oh, another thing he did. This is where I was going. Was he refused to register his car.
Oh yeah.
Or get a license plate.
Yeah.
Refused.
How do you do that?
I don't know. I have a buddy who did that. This kind of reminds me, as he was going through, I'm like, I know a guy that does that. And I'm like, that seems really, like, come on. We all got to, toe the line a little bit. If we're going to share the road,
Right.
There's a reason. And it's not tyranny, it's just civil, like, there's a civil reason, and we're all agreeing to, like, share the road, So, being I don't know, libertarian with a small L, I think I would say that's our kind of angle, just inside baseball. But anyway,
we're helping pay for the roads.
I'm all independent. Yeah, whatever. Okay. I'm not an anarchist.
Anarchy.
Yeah, those guys suck. So anyway, so that was really interesting about Steve Jobs. I gotta tell you, there's a bunch of great takeaways from that book. So
it's cool.
Anyway, so get out there and read, folks. I mean, there are so many cheap epiphanies, and that's, we've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm gonna say it right now. Epiphanies are costly, and this is what I tell my clients. Epiphanies are costly. They, the time, energy, money, really it's juice. This is a tool of mine called juice, right? So there's, when the good stuff, the juice, there's this saying, is the juice worth the squeeze? And as I'm talking with clients, we'll say that, like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to work really hard on this. I'm like, well, for what? What are you going to get out of this? What's the good stuff that'll come out of it? And I kind of created this little tool to say, well, here's the good stuff. It's time. We only have so much of it. Nobody knows how much they have. We all have the same type of time, which is 24/7. Nobody has more than 24/7. And we don't know how many 24/7s we have.
That's the big question mark.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but that's all we got. And then energy, so it's enthusiasm, it's motivation, it's, it's just that pep, if you will, or attention. When you give something attention, you're giving it your energy, if you will. Chutzpah, charisma. I don't know.
Chutzpah.
Yeah. How do you spell chutzpah?
I don't know.
It's such a weird word. So I think it's Yiddish. Isn't that Yiddish?
It sounds like it.
I think it is. So time, energy. So this is TEMPT is the acronym.
Right.
You've heard me talk about this.
I have several times.
And so this is getting back to epiphanies. So the good stuff, it costs all the good stuff: time, energy, money, people. So these are relationships. These are humans. These are folks that are close to you. That's good stuff, and talent.
That's the big one.
Those are big. Those are huge.
They're all big, but
that's the good stuff in life, if you will, or the valuable stuff. And I call all that juice. All right. So it takes a lot of juice to have an epiphany, to kind of go, oh, that's why, I don't know, make something up. That's why you shouldn't smoke 2 packs a day. Like you can. It's just dumb. You know what I mean? It'll kill you sooner rather than later.
Right.
That 24/7,
gets shorter.
You'll run out of those quicker. Right.
And we want to extend that.
And they're like, and everybody knows that.
Right.
I mean, we know that. But the folks who like have the epiphany the hard way, there are other folks who go, oh, that killed that guy, I should stop. That's a cheap epiphany. You learned by not dying.
Right.
You watched that guy die. And or read about it and believed it, right? And so that's a cheap epiphany. Now, it still takes time and energy and money, and so forth. Talent, you got to know how to read. I mean, what's that quote by Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. You know, it was so weird. I couldn't remember his pen name, but
you remembered his real name.
It's so weird.
That is weird.
Samuel Clemens, good old Mark Twain. It's a great quote.
Really good quote.
He who will not read is no better off than he who cannot. Mm-hmm. You are essentially illiterate. Mm-hmm. You may as well be illiterate if you don't go and read stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, he had another great quote about newspapers. That's right. Yeah. If you don't read the newspapers, you are uninformed. If you do read the newspapers, you are misinformed.
Yes. That's a great quote. I love it.
He's so cheeky. So, yeah. Anyway, so folks, get out there and read. Read some stuff and make some time. You got plenty of time. Quit goofing around on Facebook. That piece of crap. Like, it is a waste of time. Was I vague about that? Was that subtle?
I'm not sure about your opinion on this.
And look, LinkedIn, okay. I'm on LinkedIn. I put stuff on LinkedIn.
It's necessary.
I think it's a valuable tool. I think Facebook has value as well. Mm-hmm. Okay. But if you're sitting there looking at Facebook, you're wasting time. If you're sitting there scrolling through LinkedIn, get back to work. I mean, I do it. And I finally, and you see me do this.
Yeah,
I'll stand up and go like, what am I doing?
Right.
And I'll like quit, because I get sucked down some rabbit hole.
That's the thing is, if you could check it for a minute or two and then get back out, you're good. But it sucks you in.
Yeah. So instead of goofing around on social media, YouTube's like that for me. Yeah. I could sit there and an hour will go by. I'm like, what have I just done? And I'm not even watching the videos. I'm just like scrolling through the suggested videos. Just the thumbnail. It's just dumb. It's I don't know why it's like, what's the word? Can you look this word up?
Sure.
Titillating.
Oh.
I don't even know how to spell it. It's just it's like this little, and it's like it's a squirrel. It's like grabs your attention. What do you got?
Oh, well, to stimulate or excite someone.
Okay.
Usually in a sexual way, but you're not using it that way.
No, I'm not.
No.
Is there a second? Is that all you got? Maybe that's the wrong word.
It's it's early Middle English from the 17th century. That's interesting. No, that's pretty much it, dude.
All right. Well,
but so we don't necessarily use it that way.
Well, it's one of the ways of using it is it's just like it's like this like sparkly light that just keeps you. It's like a fly getting attracted to the flame. You're like, ah.
The real archaic meaning is to like lightly touch or tickle.
Oh.
So that's kind of how you're using it because it's kind of like.
Yeah. Okay.
So that makes sense.
So YouTube can be that way, where it's literally just got you mesmerized, and you're just kind of like, deer in the headlights. That's a great metaphor, Now
the guy that does the music videos where he analyzes songs. What's that guy's name?
Oh yeah, Rick Beato. Oh my gosh, he's amazing.
If I watch one of those, I end up watching 4 or 5.
There's a lot of good stuff on YouTube. Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff on Facebook. My wife apparently uses. Now she's not apparently my wife.
I was going to say that didn't sound right.
No, I didn't mean it that way.
Let's rephrase that.
Apparently, my wife uses Facebook in a way that's very helpful. Right. She is careful to have. Her feed has lots of interesting. Because she'll show me this thing or tell me this thing. I'm like, where'd you find that out? Mm-hmm. Like, on Facebook. Like really?
Like you actually found something good on the feed? Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing. So. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is folks waste a lot of time.
But we don't realize that we do.
Yeah.
I mean,
I used to listen to the radio all the time while I was in the car, in the truck. Mm-hmm. Especially when I was contracting. I listened to talk radio a lot.
Yeah.
A ton. Everything from NPR to Glenn Beck and the stuff all in between. I listened to all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I did listen to some. This is way before Audible, and I don't use Audible
anymore.
Yeah,
you're out of there.
Just saying. I use Scribd
or Scribed.
Yeah.
Or Scribd.
I like calling it Scribd.
We don't know. Yeah. Apologies to the company.
Yes,
We don't know the right
yes,
pronunciation.
But thank you for being a company. I just think Amazon tyrannized me on one too many times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? I call them Scamazon. I use it. I buy stuff on Amazon, but I like to fuss about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, but Audible, I'd been paying for these dumb credits, and you're getting a book for $15. Well, okay, all right. And it doesn't matter how big it is. So at first you're like, yeah, big book for $15? Okay. It seemed like a good deal.
A 28-hour book?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And when I first got on Audible, the first book I got was The Lord of the Rings. I'm like, cool. I can get the whole thing for 1 credit, I think it was. I'm like, wow. But back in the 90s and early 2000s, I'm listening to books to listen to a book, you had to have this giant portfolio from the library of tapes or CDs.
Yeah.
That's right. So driving along in the truck when I'm contracting is a real pain to listen to a book on tape. Or, well, I say book on tape because it was tape.
Right.
My grandfather, you remember my grandfather. My grandfather, Whitmore, Grandpa
Whitmore.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was legally blind. He became, I don't know, he had macular degeneration or something, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he could see a little tiny bit,
usually
4 or 5% or something
out of the side.
Yeah. So he would get from the Library of Congress or something in the mail, he had this special record player that would play these records really slow, like at 5 RPM or something.
I was wondering if it had Braille.
It did, but no, the record didn't. It was, and I just played real slow, so you could have a book without having like 50 records. Yeah, because it's only on a regular speed on 33 RPM.
Yeah.
It's like 20 minutes a side.
Right. So it was probably playing like half that or something, like
it was
16 or
even
10
less than half. Yeah, it was real slow, and it was a special record player.
And it was special records.
So as
it'd have to be cut totally different.
Yeah, you could, if you were blind, the Society of the Blind worked with the Library of Congress, and you could get this record player, and then these, and they look like. Remember when we were kids, you'd get the 16 millimeter film, like Mr. Poole, our principal, would have that big case.
Yeah.
It looked like that, and there would be these like 20 records, and he would sit there on his front porch, and he'd sip coffee. He said Sanka, and I would sit there with him. It was glorious.
That's really cool.
I could tear up remembering it. I would sit there for hours, and just on a summer day, I'd ride my bike to his house, about a mile away, mile and a half away, and I'd sit there, and we would sip Sanka, and he would smoke Raleigh cigarettes, and just watch the cars go by, and we'd listen to books. And I'm like, this is the good life.
Yeah.
And I fondly remember that. My grandpa was so amazing. So anyway, he's one of the reasons I turned out good. Pretty sure. He's probably one of the reasons a number of people turned out good. I don't know if he even knew that, but being a grandpa is one of the great callings in life.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I have 5 grandkids now.
Which is amazing.
Oh, I love it. I just saw one of them this morning, sitting on my lap drinking coffee on the back porch. Just loved it. And I had a memory of that, my grandfather, and I had this little flashback. So anyway, we're getting all over the map.
Yeah, like where were we?
I don't know. We're talking about cheap epiphanies. So, but listening to books, that's where we were at.
Yeah.
Like, folks, listen to some books. Read some books. You'll get smarter. It don't even matter what you read, I think. I mean, just read. And then ease into reading some better stuff. I really pound on this with my clients. Read some books. If they're not reading, I make fun of them. I laugh at them. I'm just like, well, there's your problem. That's why you're an idiot. I mean, it's my job to kind of wake them up,
Poke at them.
Yeah. So, the Steve Jobs book. So the whole point of all this, like, rant is I read 4 books in the last few weeks. And I'm happy. I'm happier. I love reading. All right, so I got this tool out of Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Now, I got to tell you, this Brian Tracy book, it was a little hard to stomach. It had a lot of good stuff in it. Some of it was really elementary, maybe. But it's punchy because some of the simple stuff is the best stuff. So I'm not putting it down for that. I don't know. It just seemed a little silly.
But there's one thing that you got out of the book that ended up being very cool.
Yep. And
so that's the cool thing.
And the title, Eat That Frog, he kind of says, look, there's some stuff people procrastinate. Mm-hmm. And he's talking to leaders. He's talking to doers, people with significant things to get done. He's like, look, you put off things that you don't like, that are nasty, that are unsavory things you've got to do.
And almost everybody does it.
Everybody does it, yeah. We procrastinate around those things that we just aren't looking forward to doing. Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah.
And he calls that the frog. Mm-hmm. He's like, you got this nasty, ugly thing. Mm-hmm. And, and somebody's like, you got to eat that. And you're like, oh, I don't want to eat that.
Broccoli.
He's like, well, I called you broccoli, eating your broccoli. Now I love broccoli. Yeah. But when I was a kid, I did not love broccoli.
No, that was not good.
Oh, man, I got to eat that?
That's why we got to put a ton of cheese all over it.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom put nothing on it. It was steamed or something, or she boiled it. So it was kind of moshy. I don't know. She did that with squash too, dude. I hated squash as a kid. My mom grew everything. For in the 70s, dude, almost everything we ate came out of her garden or something. Which is okay. We were all broke.
Really cool.
Everybody's broke in the 70s, pretty much. But anyway.
So back to Eat That Frog.
Yeah. So he's like, you take the ugliest, nastiest thing you've got to do and do that first.
Just get it done.
Just go eat it.
Do it.
Go do it. And put that at the front of your list. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, okay. I mean, well, that was easy.
Yeah, but we still don't do it.
No. But he's like, but if you did do that, then everything else is better. You're eating the thing you don't like first. Mm-hmm. Another thing we ate that I hated, and because they were cheap, chicken liver.
Ew.
Oh.
Oh.
My mom, every once, actually, we would go to, did you ever go to Portage Frosted Foods? Remember that place?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Back in the neighborhood somewhere in Ravenna, our town, that we grew up in. So I would go with her, and it was just like, I don't know, it's a butcher shop.
Yeah, yeah.
Where they would store. So we rented space. I forgot about that. We would can and freeze all this stuff, and you could have a freezer there.
Oh, yeah.
Too, because they had slabs of beef hanging around and stuff. Big butcher type place. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she would buy chicken liver because it was cheap, and I'm like, oh shoot. I mean, as a little kid, I'm like 5, 6 years old. I'm holding her hand, standing there, and I'm like, chicken liver.
That's nasty.
I'm like,
I'm sure there's people out there that really love chicken liver, but no, thank you.
We're gonna be eating that tonight, huh? Oh man. Yeah.
I'd be like, deer burgers again, because my dad would deer hunt.
Yeah.
And we'd have all the different type of deer meat, full freezer, in those white packages and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, but we would have deer meat all winter. Yeah. And we would get to, little kids, deer burgers again. Yeah. Oh man. Kind of whine about it, but we ate.
Yeah,
so there you
that's
go.
right. Yeah. Well, so if you eat the chicken liver first, everything else is looking up.
I don't know how you can't get much worse than chicken liver.
So if I had broccoli and chicken liver for dinner, I'm like, well, I'm gonna eat the chicken liver first, then broccoli all of a sudden is looking real good.
Right.
And squash. My mom would saute the squash in a way that it got real slimy. She overcooked it, but
you ever had spaghetti squash?
Yes.
It's all.
I didn't like it as a kid. No. It's okay now. I get it. It's good for you. So I had a fruit fly on my microphone.
He's not paying rent.
Well, so he had this tool, Brian Tracy. So anyway, that's the purpose of that's the title of the book is like do the hard stuff first. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's easy.
Yeah,
I mean that's simple. Yeah, and it's profound actually, and very helpful. Okay, so then he later in the book he kind of had this thing he called it A B C D E. where I made a different tool out of it. So I'm like, well, that's a dumb tool.
Because how do you remember A, B, C, D, E, except for the fact that it's in the alphabet in order? I mean,
so I reworked it, and that's what I'm going to show you right here.
Move this stuff.
The concept is, I have it all scribbled on my paper.
Yeah, well, there it is. Yeah. I'll zoom in on it here.
So I renamed the tool Focus.
That's a great word.
Right. So here's the premise. Here's the problem. Here's a problem we all have. And especially if, as a leader, as a business owner, as an organizational person, kind of charging forward, saying, "Here, let's all go there." There's something you're trying to get done. There's something we are trying to accomplish. So you start with that and say, "All right, what is this big thing we're trying to do? What is this big vision?" With Steve Jobs, like, "Hey, we want to put out this iPod," and he was really good at focusing. He focused like a laser beam on the thing they were trying to get done.
It's almost kind of like a dog grabbing onto something and not letting go.
He was tenacious, for sure. Focus is and that was one of his qualities. All right. Now, because of his focus, he ignored everything else, including his kids and other stuff in his license plate.
Showering.
Yeah. Because he's like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Now that's focus over the top,
right?
I'd say out of balance. But anyway.
Yeah.
So our problem is we tend, if we have this thing we're trying to get done. So for him it was iPod. iPod was a game changer for Apple, major game changer, and he focused on it. And so if you say, all right, we're going to put out this little gizmo that has this stuff on it. Okay, cool. That's our vision. Great. That's where we're headed. Great. Now, you say, well, what are all the things you're doing right now? What is your week, your day, your month? Like, what are you doing? What's your life full of? And this is coming back to reading. You might say, well, I'm messing around on Facebook for an hour a day or 2 hours a day or watching Netflix or, whatever. Okay, so you'd write that down. Like, here's all the stuff you're doing. So you start off with this big vision. Like, where are you trying to go? What's your goal? What's your big goal here? And it could be, hey, my goal is to build this edition, or my goal is to, I don't know, save such and such a money in my retirement account, or my goal is to get this division of our business profitable, or my goal is to open up that new market for our business, or our goal is to take this entirely new product to market. Or my goal is to grow the business from 10 people to 40 people, from 1 million to 10 million or something, and have a 10% profit, whatever. Okay, great. So you got to start with that. All right. The end in mind. Then you say, all right, what are you doing right now? What's all the stuff you're doing? Well, I watch YouTube. I goof around on the internet. I mow the lawn. I hang out with my kids. I go to church sometimes. And you just list all the stuff you do. And you just basically, you're taking a very broad-brushed inventory of your life schedule. Really, it's around time. Specifically. Right. And you could also insert here some of the other juice. So you might say, well, what am I spending my money on? What am I spending my time on? What am I spending my energy on? What am I spending my talent on? What am I spending my people on? So you got people in your life. Well, you got people that can help with this or help with that, or that are supporting you here and there, or that you lead and manage and dispatch on things. Okay, so what am I spending those on? Okay. So you just kind of come up with a broad, one pager, fill a page with, all right, here's what all my stuff is I'm doing. And I've got that goal over there, and here's all this stuff here. Okay. So now you take all that stuff, and it takes a couple hours. I have a hard time doing this part of the exercise. I think it's a great exercise. I just can't seem to, I have a hard time actually doing it because of the way my brain works. So,
but you'll make other people do it.
And other people would do it really well.
Yeah.
I just have a hard time taking inventory, I guess, and making lists.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just not very listy. I don't know.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Now, I am listy in a way where I'm like, oh, there's all these things we got to do. Blah, 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 and I can like see it strategically.
Yeah.
But I'm not like a good accounter of things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, because I tried to do this, I'm like, I got really stuck. I'm like, oh, I'd have to have somebody else do it. Somebody else could come along with me and go, oh, well, you do this, and you do this, and you do that. And then I could do, a stenographer, right. Court reporter, right, exactly. So if I had that, now you do this exercise. Okay, so you take the word focus. Focus, again, is an acronym. And you want to kind of take all those things you're doing, and some of those things, and you're looking at the goal now, some of those things are really important, where if you don't do those things, there are dire consequences. You go broke, you go out of business, you get sued, the IRS calls you, you don't get to your goal, you stay at 1% profit or minus, or you're breaking even, or you're going into debt, or, your marriage falls apart, or whatever. There are dire consequences. And so those things are fundamentals. Yeah. They're foundational. Either F works there, first.
Right.
But that's the first. That's the F here is you want to go through that list and identify what are those fundamentals that must be done, and put a little F by them and circle. Okay, so then you look through that list and you say, all right, some of these things, and again, this is in light of the goal. All right, so some of these things are optional, where they have mild consequences. They're okay. That's another thing you could put there, stuff optional. Hey, these are okay.
I like that.
They're worth doing, but not terribly. All right, they have low value. They have some value.
Some value, yeah, but
their value is low.
Yeah.
All right, so you put an O by those, as in optional or okay. So the next letter here is C, and that stands for comfortable or cozy. Like, these are things I just like doing because it makes me feel good, or I have a good day. My day is better because of that. Drinking coffee. Like, I could put coffee there. It doesn't matter if I drink coffee. Now, I'll tell you, and this is one of my sayings, I've said this before, there's not a lot that a good cup of coffee doesn't help. All right. Now, that being said, I don't really need it. It's like, it's just something I like.
Right.
All right. So you might say, man, how much time do you spend making coffee and drinking coffee? And if you said, what if you called a future client instead of drank coffee? Oh, okay, that would be boring. I mean, it would be productive, I'm sure.
Right.
I mean, I'd argue that, I don't know.
Can you do both?
At the same time? There you go. Maybe so.
Yeah.
But it's, just for sake of argument.
Right.
So you go through your list of stuff, and this is where you might say, okay, a little bit of Netflix. All right. It's like a relaxing. Okay. So if it's 9 at night or 10 at night, and you're like, I'm fried. And I just need to kick back and like zone a little bit. All right. Well, that's comfortable. That would fit under comfortable. But there are no consequences depending on what you're watching.
Yeah.
All right. You might be watching some stupid blather that means that just that toxifies your brain. Okay. Yeah. Stop that.
Right.
All right. So, that's coming.
Right.
Anyway, so the comfortable, you just go through this list and say, all right, here's these things that I'm doing that are comfortable. Okay, cool. Now you go through the list and say, and you put the C by those comfortable things. And this is, again, just observing what you got in your life. Now, the next one is you in focus, and that is, these are the things you should unload.
Yeah.
Now, they're not bad things. They're just things that you shouldn't be doing. Somebody else should be doing those. This is a real challenge as leaders scale. The definition of scaling means, in some ways, you're delegating well.
Right.
Where other folks are doing things that you used to do, and they're doing them better and cheaper so that you can do more of the things that only you can do that have a big impact on the whole organization.
That's 80-20.
Yeah, 80-20 all day long. So, Steve Jobs, like, he could have been like, hey, instead of getting my car registered, I was thinking about the iPod. Okay, well, that makes sense, I guess. But really, he should have had he didn't have any personal assistants. He didn't have security detail. He didn't have a driver. He didn't have his doors locked. Like Isaac, what's his name? Walter Isaacson? He's like, yeah, I walked over. I just flew in. I flew into Steve, just flew into wherever, Palo Alto, and drove over and got out and walked around the yard and just kind of walked through the back door and found Steve. And this is the guy he is worth many billions of dollars. At one point, many times, he had this very interesting up and down relationship with Bill Gates. Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting and very tumultuous, as well as up and down. Mm-hmm. And there was this really beautiful situation where Bill Gates, as Steve was dying, he was like on his deathbed in his living room, basically, or bedroom. And Bill Gates like showed up and just kind of strolled in the living room and, hey, is Steve here? Mm-hmm. And his daughter or wife or somebody was like, yeah, go see him. And he went and they hung out, sat on his bed for like 3 hours. And it was like 3 days before he died or something.
Wow.
And they had, now Steve was really bad at saying he was sorry. Mm-hmm. There's this great
That's
scene.
not a surprise.
In Megamind. Have you seen Megamind?
I think
oh my gosh,
it was a long time
it's
ago.
It's funny.
Yeah,
so there's this great scene in Megamind where the character, the main character, who struggles with humility, he struggles with he doesn't have humility. He struggles with arrogance, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he goes, he has this right hand person. Mm-hmm. I think he calls him Minion. I think, and he goes, Minion, you were right. And I was less right. And like, come on, dude. So Steve was like that. Right. He just couldn't be like, yeah, I screwed that up. Yeah. He was just like, yeah, you did that better. But he wouldn't say like, I screwed it up. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Well, so there were things that he should have delegated and unloaded. Mm-hmm. And that's just unload this stuff. It's important stuff to have done, but it's just not you. Mm-hmm. All right? You shouldn't be doing it. Somebody else should be. Bookkeeping, right? I mean, in a business, hire somebody to do the books. Right. Sub it out. Mm-hmm. Outside the business, a lot of times like HR, sub it out. Mm-hmm. IT, sub it out. Mm-hmm. Now at some point, maybe it makes sense to have full timer sitting in the seat. Okay, but the point is that many business owners are mesmerized, or they're control freaks, and they can't let go of certain elements of the business because they're freaked out. Now Steve Jobs was freaked out too. Yeah. You see that in the book. There were things that really freaked him out. Mm-hmm. And like, well, that really hurt him. It hurt. Mm-hmm. It hurt a lot of things in his life that are still reverberating, I'm sure. You need to unload those things, right? And freaked out is a bad reason to hold on to stuff. A lot of business owners do that. And then lastly, the S is stop. There's some stuff you should just stop doing because they're dumb, they're toxic, they're mindless, they're unhealthy, they're not, they're just not a valuable part of your life. You know what I'm saying? They're not even cozy or comfortable. They're just dumb. And,
eating chicken livers. Wow. Just stop that.
Yeah. I mean, they might be good for you. I don't know. I don't know. But, maybe eating donuts. All right. I I don't think you can argue that donuts are good for you at any level, So, they're yummy.
They're delicious.
Once in a while, having a donut, okay, cool. But so, having 4 or 5, no, that's dumb. Just stop doing that, and figure out why. And there's some root there. Use the smack tool to figure it out.
Right.
So anyway, that is this little focus tool. Again, it's just a hack to get you to see some stuff and do some stuff differently. And some of this I pulled from Eat That Frog book, and some of this I pulled from the Steve Jobs book, and that should help. It's gonna help. It's helping me. So there you go. That's what I want to talk about. I think we did. I think we checked that box.
Yeah. Check mark.
So what episode? 019. I keep forgetting. Yeah. 019. We got that one in the can. This song, by the way, our out song as well as our in song is good old Peter Gabriel. This album is really good. It is just, the whole album is great. It's very well done, very artistic, very beautifully recorded, written, performed. It is one of my top 5 albums for sure.
Yeah, so this is great stuff.
It's worth listening to.
Yeah.
I got Brandon Kenny turned on to this album.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be maybe on our next episode.
I think so. Yes. Yeah. Episode 20. That's what we hear.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Rumors
have it. All right. So there we go. Episode 19 in the can.
Good job. I'll see you at the next one.
All right.
Singing, he's all puffed up, wanna be your king. Oh, you can do it. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Lady, kiss that.